I took that board that I made to stretch out the fabric on, and I stretched that fabric back out on it again and glued it down. This time I let it sit for a little while before I tried to do anything with it. Then I shrunk that fabric, and I've laid out two of the gussets. This is all the same gusset here, and then drawn a pattern around it, giving me an inch. And then this is the second gusset. This is the square gusset that goes in for inspection cover. Anyway, I'm going to cut those out and we'll put those on the wing. Now I took and shrunk the fabric, and then I just sized it with a little bit of poly brush, and that'll help make it easier to cut these patterns out. Well, I've got a lot of these doilies, we call them, to cut out. I've got some round ones to cut out for the inspection covers, the hand inspection covers, and then I've got at least one more square one or rectangular one like this one to cut out for that other pattern, and I've got these two to cut out. So you need a good pair of pinking shears to cut those with, and I've got 3 or 4 pinking shears here, and unfortunately pinking shears, when they get dull, then they don't cut anymore, and they're not like regular scissors. You can't just sharpen them, but you can send them back into the company, and there's places that will sharpen them and redo them. But like this pair here is no good anymore. It's dull, it won't cut right anymore. And this fabric is kind of abrasive, so it eats these things up. So this pair here, this pair still works pretty good. And it works a lot better on this fabric if it's been sized a little bit with poly brush. But these rotary pinkers, they work really nice, and they're have a smaller cut on them. They make a smaller pink on them than these other ones. The nice thing about it, it's got a roll on it, so it's continuous. You don't have to keep trying to match up the teeth on it as you go around here, as you cut. It just keeps cutting. I'm going to make a nice rounded corner there. A little bit of poly brush on there, just like when I used the polytack when I was cutting the fabric. That keeps it from unraveling here on these edges and stuff, and makes a nice clean cut. Well, here's the cut with the regular pinking shears, and it cuts just fine. And there's the cut with the rotary pinking shears. They actually match up pretty good, but for some reason these ones off the rotary look like they're smaller. Yeah, they're not quite the same. They are closer together and smaller teeth. Well, now this one fits over this rectangular grommet. What did I do with that other one? This is the grommet for the strut attach fittings here, and this one will fit over that. All I did was lay this out on there, draw out the outline of it, and then mark an inch perimeter all the way around that and cut it out. It's going to have to be cut out on the inside to fit the struts, but we'll do that when we put it up, mount it up there. And I don't need to cut out this big cutout here to fit in there. This had to be cut out like that for this solid piece to fit over those struts attach fittings, but this I can set down over it and it won't have to. I want to make it a little tighter anyway. Now the leftover piece is still pretty good size, but I'd cut out that teardrop shaped piece for the top aileron cable, and so there's a chunk cut out of that. Well, it's not quite big enough to make another doily for that other gusset, so I'm going to have to make up another piece of fabric for that. It's one of the reasons I save all the fabric. This is still a pretty good sized chunk of fabric, and what I'd done before when I did the fuselage and did the control surfaces, I had a whole bunch of seaplane grommets that I made doilies for, covers for. Well, here are the seaplane grommets. You see they got a dome shape on them and a slit on the back so that they go on, so the airflow goes over this way, and they actually create a little bit of a suction on this side to help pull moisture and stuff out. I put a bunch of these on the horizontal stabilizers and the rudders and the elevators and stuff like that, and I made a bunch of round doilies with those, just using a shape like this to draw around, cutting out circles and using those. But I broke down and did something a little bit different. I bought a bunch of these dollar patches, and these are all pre-cut out, uniform size, and they were cheap, inexpensive. It really wasn't worth the trouble of cutting all of these out by hand for the price of what I got these for. Univair has doilies to fit over these covers too, but they didn't have any at Stoddard's when I ordered them, so I didn't get any. So anyway, I got to dig out some more fabric to make a bunch of doilies for these inspection covers here. And what they recommend using for a pattern for those is just one of these gallon cans, gallon can lids or gallon can, just to set on there, draw out, circle, and make those into a doily for the inspection covers. So that's one of the reasons I save all my old fabric and stuff. So anyway, I've got to rip this thing apart, get another piece of fabric, and start making a bunch of doilies for those the rectangular inspection cover. And then I've got some other things I've got to make doilies for too. So I'll get this ripped up, put another one on there, get that set up. I'll have to put the poly tack on there, let that dry, and then put a little bit of poly brush on there and let that cure and cut out some more of those. So we got a whole bunch of those to cut out. Now, I don't know that there's any brand of these pinking shears that's any better than any other, but you do need a good quality set of pinking shears. And this fabric is abrasive, so it wears them out. It dulls them fairly fast. That goes the same with just regular scissors. So this pair of scissors I've used a lot. I bought these for doing the fuselage and the other stuff, and they're still pretty good. They've cut a lot, but they stay pretty good. This pair of scissors here, well, it's kind of a pair like poultry scissors or chef scissors or something. And anyway, they'll cut. When it got it sized like this, they cut pretty good, but not as good as those other scissors, and they won't cut the plain fabric very well. Well, I've got two coats, bed coats on for the doilies and for the tapes and stuff on that bottom edge of that wing. Oh, I don't know whether I need any more. I might go ahead and put another coat on those while I'm making up these doilies and stuff for the wing to cut out. So I've got some cut off pieces of fabric that aren't quite big enough to fit on that other frame that I made. And I need quite a few of these doilies. Well, I just went out there and made some more frames, and basically these are just the outcuts, the center of the board that I used to make that first frame with. I just went ahead and cut them out a couple more times, cut out the center of them a couple more times, and it's not cabinet work. It doesn't have to be perfect. Now, this stuff absorbs quite a bit of glue, this wood. Let me see here, how that one so that it'll fit on there. There we go. Just about got to be glued all the way around to shrink this fabric, otherwise it just bunches up like it did in the first one, attempt that I made at it. I've got the doilies made up for these strut attach fittings, and I think they look pretty good. Also got one made for this handhole cover here. These took a little bit more than I expected. They're kind of a convoluted shape with this drag strut going through right here. It sticks up or down below the bottom of the fabric, and then the fabric has got to go down in for the strut to fit up in there, and so it's got lots of humps and bumps on it. My first attempt at that I wasn't too happy with. I was basically chopping up the one that I made until I got it figured out how to make it fit, and I could have made this one fit, but I just didn't like the looks of it with all those tabs and stuff like that on it. cuts in it. Didn't need to be there, but it gave me a pattern to use on how to do this right. And it was the same thing on the one on the rear spar. I wound up cutting that tongue out. I shouldn't have cut that out. But anyway, I got that one set up, and that gave me a pattern to make new ones with. I've got new fabric here, and it shrunk down to 250 degrees, which is only 10% of the shrink or something like that. And then it's just lightly coated with polybrush, just enough so that it seizes it, so that it's make nice clean sharp cuts on it and stuff, and no fraying on it. So anyway, that fits in there pretty good. I'm happy with that now. I'll get some polybrush mixed up when I get the rest of these doilies made up, and then start putting those on, because these all go on before the finish tapes go on. So this is the one for this inspection cover here. I've got one for the rear spar attach point over there. Like I said, I kind of butchered up the first attempt at it. Well, I redid it, and it looks a lot better. This thing is pretty ugly without something to cover it up with. You've got big gaps in there where the fabric shrunk away from those brackets when I put the fabric on and heat shrunk the fabric. Both sides, big gaps in there. And then of course this gusset in here is ugly looking, but this will make that look pretty. So anyway, I'll wait to put those on until I mix up some more polybrush, and I'm not going to do that until I got to cut out 8 more round doilies to go over those round inspection covers. I don't know if I have enough fabric for that or not. I've got my big form and 2 little forms left, and I don't know if I've got enough fabric left on that piece that I cut these doilies out of to make a big one or not. But I'll save this fabric that's left over, because, well, I've got to make one more doily for that other square inspection cover that I'm putting down there in the wing root, and then I'll have stuff to put in the wing root itself, and maybe some other odds and ends. I've got to do something with this tie down. I think I'll make something out of nylon or out of naugahyde for that, vinyl. Okay, that's good enough for now.